It can happen that, for no clear reason, reality suddenly loses its weight. Everything seems perfectly normal, and then something cracks. In a single instant, the world seems to pull back, revealing a thin space behind the usual surface of things. And in that silence, a question resurfaces, one that has followed humanity through every era and every consciousness. Why do we exist? What is the meaning of our lives? What sense is there in this endless cycle of life and death? It's not an abstract question. It's the crack through which light enters, and at the same time, the abyss that unsettles. Leo Tolstoy walked straight into that crack with the intensity of someone who had achieved everything the world could offer, only to find himself face to face with a deafening silence. Out of that silence came his deepest reflections. They aren't academic lessons, nor comforting truths wrapped up to soothe anyone. They're fragments of a life lived to the fullest, flashes of clarity that still speak to those who face the same questions today. Tolstoy was born in 1828, in an age of great contrasts, on a noble estate in the Russian countryside. His childhood was marked by two opposing forces, privilege and loss. He grew up surrounded by private tutors, books, and culture, but the early death of his parents left a lasting imprint on his way of seeing the world. Even as a child, he had a restless curiosity, an eye that refused easy answers. His education was unconventional and rebellious, driven more by a hunger to understand than by respect for rules. He left university, choosing to shape his own learning through travel, observation, and relentless reading. In his early years as a young aristocrat, he lived fully immersed in worldly pleasures, distractions, movements, a surface of lightness. But beneath it all, something was stirring. It was as if, from the beginning, he sensed that life could not be contained within social roles and conventions. During his time in the military, he began to write. His first work, Childhood, already revealed his extraordinary ability to capture the nuances of the human soul. He wasn't just telling stories, he was observing humanity with the precision of someone who had seen its fragility up close. In the years that followed, he became one of the greatest writers in history, the author of works like War and Peace and Anna Karenina, where personal destinies and universal reflections are woven together with a narrative power that still takes one's breath away. But behind the fame and the success, a fracture was forming. As he reached maturity, after having earned wealth and recognition, he was struck by a radical crisis. Everything he had built suddenly felt hollow. It was as if every answer he had gathered over the years had evaporated, leaving only questions behind. It wasn't a passing mood. It was a real inner collapse. In his confession, Tolstoy describes looking directly into the void. The certainties that had supported him until then no longer held. From that moment on, he set out on a different path. He didn't look for easy comforts. He began an existential investigation that led him through religious texts, ancient philosophies, moral teachings, and the direct observation of everyday life. He rejected the rigid structures of institutional religion in his time and embraced a personal vision rooted in simplicity, universal love, and a life consistent with his inner principles. It was a long process, full of doubts, attempts, and sudden, striking insights. From that journey emerged reflections that still speak powerfully to anyone searching for meaning. They don't offer formulas or ready-made answers. They offer tools for honest introspection. The first of these is that the meaning of life isn't a question to ask, but a journey to undertake. Tolstoy understood that there are no final definitions that can explain everything. Life isn't a puzzle to solve, but a path to walk. Meaning emerges in the movement itself, in the act of searching. Every genuine question, even the unanswered ones, has value. Every uncertain step is part of the way. Trying to hold absolute answers is like trying to trap the wind. What matters is learning to listen to it as it blows. The second lesson is about the transformative power of loving what one does, not in a romantic sense, but as a deep dedication to an action, a craft, or a gesture that goes beyond the ego. Tolstoy saw creative, manual, or intellectual work as a way of participating in life that gives it meaning. When an action is born out of genuine involvement, it stops being just a duty and becomes a statement. Whether it's writing, farming, teaching, or cooking, what matters is the intention behind the act. Another key insight is the centrality of the present. Tolstoy noticed how much of human suffering comes from being pulled toward what has already passed, or fearing what might come. Accepting the transience of existence doesn't mean giving in to pessimism. It means acknowledging reality in its entirety. Every moment then becomes a unique chance to live intensely. Finding meaning in small everyday things, a kind gesture, a quiet pause, a smile, is an act of resistance against the constant distraction that drains time of its weight. Tolstoy also emphasized the importance of believing in something greater than oneself, not necessarily in a religious sense, but as an inner compass. Without a deeper point of reference, life risks turning into a series of disconnected events. Having an ideal, a principle, a guiding star gives coherence to one's actions and strength in the darkest moments. It's like walking through the night knowing that, even if the path isn't fully visible, there's a distant light showing the way. Another conviction he held deeply was the value of simplicity. Born into privilege, Tolstoy chose to live like a peasant in his later years. Not out of romanticism, but out of coherence. He had realized that artificial complexity, status, wealth, conventions, doesn't bring happiness. It only distances one from what truly matters. For him, living authentically meant stripping away everything superfluous to make space for what's essential: honest relationships, nature, integrity, inner values. Tolstoy also spoke about the need to feel part of a larger whole. Every individual is not an island, but a node in an immense network that includes people, animals, nature, and the universe. Becoming aware of this interconnectedness means recognizing that every action, no matter how small, carries weight in the larger fabric of reality. No one is truly separate. We're part of something that goes far beyond individual boundaries. Finally, one of his strongest lessons: dedicating oneself to others as a path to meaning. Tolstoy believed that true happiness doesn't come from possession, but from giving, helping, supporting, caring. These weren't heroic acts to him, but natural ways of participating in life. In this movement of opening toward others, a wider dimension of existence reveals itself. It's in building bonds and sharing that one discovers their place in the world. In his final years, Tolstoy lived consistently with his beliefs. He gave up privilege, faced family tensions and conflicts with institutions, but never turned back. He searched for peace, not in a formula, but in a way of living. He died on the road, far from home, still seeking the inner freedom he had pursued all his life. His last words were simple, just like the truth he had come to embrace. Truth matters more than anything else. His life is not a monument, but a journey. It doesn't offer certainties, but examples. His reflections don't belong to the past. They speak to anyone who still feels the need to question. In a time when answers are delivered endlessly but rarely touch anything real, his voice calls for a pause, an honest look, and a fearless search. The meaning of life doesn't come in a package. It's built, step by step, through daily choices, in the encounters with other eyes, in the way one decides to face the unknown. It's a path that never fully ends, and perhaps that's exactly why it's worth walking.